Hi, everyone. It's Steve Politi from NJ Advanced Media. This week's Rutgers Rant is brought to you by the New Brunswick Development Corporation. A big thank you to our sponsor and to all of our listeners for the continued support. Now let's get to the show.
From NJ.com and the Star Ledger, welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politi and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start shopping.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Rant. Victory Monday. Been a while since we've had one of these. Big Ten win. Had to have it. We had a great performance by the Rutgers defense. Not a good performance, a great performance. An epic game by running back Sam Brown. Smart adjustments by the new offensive coordinator, Nunzio Campanile. And yet, you know where I'm going to start this, fellas. You know where it's coming. You know it's coming because it's just a complete circle here. But we're back to the same point. The quarterbacks. We had Noah Vedral started the game, played the entire game, and yet there's still this feeling of maybe dissatisfaction with the performance of the quarterbacks. It's an interesting topic. I wrote strongly that I believe that they got to roll with him until the point where these games no longer matter. They still matter at 4-3. Interesting that Greg Schiano continues to bring up Gavin Wimsatt, though. It's like he brought him up unprompted today at his press conference. Fonseca, what is your sense now with the quarterback situation down there? I mean, have they landed on the guy, or are we still at this point where we don't know?
So using context clues, when Greg talked after the game on Saturday, he said the plan was to start Noah and that Gavin was the 2. I think in an ideal world, Rutgers builds a lead with Noah Vedral, gives himself a cushion, and can give Gavin Wimsatt and a chance to get some reps in play. Obviously, when you start losing 14-0 immediately, that room is gone. And Rutgers, as good as the defense played and as much as they were able to come back in that game, they didn't have really a space to throw in Gavin where it would not put the win at risk. And Greg's been pretty clear that winning games now is the main priority. But I do get the sense that he does want to see Gavin in a game at some point. Just like you said, he brings him up unprompted, or even maybe the fact he's bringing him up unprompted, mentioning him developing week after week, mentioning him having a good Sunday last night. They do developmental practices on Sunday nights, and he pointed out that Gavin had a good night. Maybe that's just to remind us that he is making progress, even if he's not playing in games, kind of his whole "you make progress in practice" mantra that he shared with us last week. So it's tough to entirely tell, but it seems pretty clear that they're going to ride Noah Vedral. They're going to start him on Minnesota. I'd be surprised if he didn't. And they're going to sprinkle in Gavin when they can, when it makes sense, but they won't risk a win if that's what to put him in there.
It's interesting because I felt like that was those comments were targeted to a very small audience, namely Gavin and his family, which I understand completely. I wrote, this is a very tricky tightrope for Greg Schiano to walk because he's got to win games now. We've seen what this does when you don't beat these games that are winnable at home, like this one against Indiana was, like Nebraska and Iowa were. Lanny, let me put it to you this way. Then this is what I come back to. Do you think Rutgers would have beaten Nebraska if Gavin Wimsatt were healthy and played the entire game? Because I know that would have happened if Noah Vedral played the entire game. Even with a bad hand, because that's how they lost the game by turnovers from the other guy.
Right. Mistakes. It's so hard to predict who's going to make a mistake in a game. But I think with Wimsatt, you get all these intangibles that put him over the top, and you get this versatility with the read option and his legs as an ability to run. I think that. So my answer, to put it simply, is yes. I think they absolutely would have beaten Nebraska with Gavin. Huh. Just from a sense, like, he expands the playbook so much, and his ability to run, we've seen it, is definitely better than Vedral's, and it even opens up the run game even more. So I would think that with Wimsatt running the read option opens things up for Sam Brown even more.
That's a good point, but there's a certain level where you have to at least show the ability to throw. Wimsatt's got 44 career passes. 4 of them were picked off.
That's a great point. That's totally fair. But they were also on big plays downfield. 2 of those, at least this year. The 2 interceptions this year were, 30, 40-yard passes, which Rutgers doesn't even do with Vedral in at quarterback. So I'm going to stand up for Wimsatt and say that, like, his ceiling is something that they can still win games with him at quarterback. So I think it's not a done deal. I think this is going to keep going on and on and on until the season's over.
It's pretty fascinating, Brian. You broke down every pass he threw. I guess there were some, and you know, in the course of the game, you did notice that were shakier than the other ones. I mean, it just looked like he missed a lot of easy throws too.
Yeah, a lot of the throws were the wide receivers making plays versus the throws being very well placed. Johnny Langan had a couple of passes thrown behind him that he had to make catches that Matt Millen continuously reminded of, that if the throws were made in front of him, he could have, you know, gained some extra yards instead of just catching the ball and stopping. Again, but the biggest thing that Vedral brings is he didn't turn the ball over. He didn't put the ball in danger very often. There were a couple of throws there that were borderline, but he didn't really put the ball in danger, which is, again, what the coaching staff wants. But yes, there feels like he had two nice throws to Sean Ryan on that touchdown drive, the first one. And from there really wasn't that much after. So it feels like there is some room to grow in the deep in the passing game down the field. I'm not sure if Gavin Wimsatt is ready to fulfill that, but I definitely agree that there is a hole there that could be filled.
All right. Fascinating debut by Nunzio, as mentioned. The first thing he did was the thing that any of us would have done. Could have, anybody who was hired for this job, if you put me as coordinator, anybody as coordinator, gave the ball to Sam Brown 28 times, no running back rotation. This kid is special. I mean, he showed it 101 yards. You had an incredible stat. What was his yards after contact?
89, which it's twofold, right? It's very impressive of him that so many of these runs, he had guys on him and he just kept breaking tackles or pushing through piles, always falling forward. I do question how much should the offensive line get some blame there? Is he getting hit a little further than he should be, maybe, right? That's the other side of the coin of this. But yes, I mean, the fact the kid runs so hard. The Derrick Henry comparison was a bit much for Matt Millen. It was, the kid's not Derrick Henry, but he sure looked really, really, really impressive. And all the early signs he showed, now that he was given this huge amount of carries, he really took advantage, and he looks like the real deal.
Yeah. And the other part of it, Pat, just, you know, we talked the complimentary football thing was what happened in the third quarter, right? I mean, Rutgers had the ball for 14 minutes and 7 seconds. And that's how your defense stays fresh. That's how you win a Big Ten game. They were just physically dominant. That's what Nunzio was given this job to do, to simplify the offense, to make it play to its strengths. That's what you saw.
Absolutely. It's funny because in the Big Ten Network did a clip of, they asked every coach what was the most overrated stat in football. And it's funny that Greg Schiano's answer was time of possession. I don't know if you saw that.
That's right. That's great. Yeah.
But in this game, that was exactly what it was. And I think he's flipped his tune since Big Ten Media Day. His time of possession was really important, and the defense played like time of possession was really important.
All right. And all of this said, Nunzio isn't even the coordinator we should be talking about. I mean, what's happening on defense each week, this unit seems to be getting better. And Brian, again, you know the great stat, 18 defensive players against Indiana, 12 of them have at least 2 years more eligibility left. This defense is good now. It's going to be very good. My question, though, when you watched it again, is what you saw defensively, is this against weak offenses, or is this going to translate when you're playing a superior offense?
That's what we're going to find out soon here. I don't know how legit Minnesota is, because they've played pretty much tomato cans. They have great stats, but they haven't really played anybody or done very well against a good team. And Rutgers hasn't played any really good offenses outside of Ohio State, who they gave up 49 points to. But again, most defenses would do that. But every other team they've played ranks in the bottom half of the country in most offensive stats. Indiana was, as fast as they play, they don't play very well offensively. So I'm interested to see, you know, for example, when Michigan comes to town in a couple of weeks, can that young defensive line that's been so good, these great interior linemen, you know, in Ifan Maijay and Keontae Hamilton, Aaron Lewis, and Wesley Bailey on the edges, can they compete against an offensive line in Michigan that just dominated Penn State? Like, we watched that game. They're the best offensive line I've seen in years, in the Big Ten at least. So can they compete against them? That'll be the true test. But before you can beat great teams, you have to play well against bad to good teams. And Rutgers has passed just about every test against all these offenses. They looked tremendous against Indiana. They made an adjustment. Indiana's quarterback said that they came out in a bit of some soft zone. And then after that first drive, they went straight man-to-man and they dominated from there. So Joe Harris-Simiak is developing players. He's making good in-game adjustments. And I totally agree. I think he's been the biggest revelation of the coaching staff this season. And I'm excited to see how he'll react to kind of going back home, not home, but a place he was for 3 years this week.
I love that. To your point, I love the way the cornerbacks, the safeties, how aggressively they played against Indiana's receivers after that first drive. It was noticeable. And to have a coach that makes defensive adjustments, again, no matter how many times you say his last name, I'm going to mispronounce it. Harasimiak? Say it to me.
Yeah,
say
you got it. You got
Did
it.
I really? It's like I have I have mental blocks. Like you notice I never, no matter, of course, Big Cliff for basketball has changed the pronunciation of his name. I just call him Cliff because it's easier on me. I will embarrass myself because no matter how many times I try, I'm going to get it wrong. Anyway, Harasimiak. Did I get right that second? You got wrong second, 2 in a row? No, okay.
Better. It's right. It was good.
Okay.
Good enough.
Pat, Joe really did a nice job, though.
I wanted to go back to a point on Brian, too, about I haven't gone through the game-by-game Ohio State tapes of CJ Stroud, but I thought Rutgers actually I know they gave up 49 points and it was a blowout, but I thought they've actually played CJ Stroud decently well. So
they did. It was just the running game where they gave up 300 yards on the ground, I think.
So the Heisman front runner had his toughest game against Rutgers. That's pretty astounding. But yeah, Joe Harasimiak's done a terrific job. And
Harasimiak.
There you go. Keep practicing it one more time. Joe Harasimiak.
This is it. And 5 minutes later, I will do it wrong anyway. All right, let's dive into true or false. Got a lot of good topics here, as always. And you guys know the rules. True or false? The Johnny Football short yardage package is dead. Fonseca, true or false?
False, but in a good way.
Okay. Pat?
False.
False. Yeah, I think it's going to make it. It's going to make a comeback here eventually. I'll go with false as well. True or false? Nunzio will be the OC next year. Too early to ask this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Brian?
False.
Ooh. Pat?
True.
Whoa. I'm going to go false for now, but that position can change. All right. True or false? Sam Brown will finish with more than 800 yards rushing this year. He has 374 now with 5 games left. Brian, the workhorse, going to get it done. True or false?
False.
False as well. That seems like way too many straight 100-yard games against Big Ten teams. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to go true. I think he's going to get like a 200-yarder for these games. Maryland's defense, final game of the year. Mark that one down. All right. Where are we? True or false? This team's MVP is Christian Bradwell to the MVP game. Brian, true or false?
MVP of the game? I'll say true.
MVP of the season?
No, it's not Christian Bradwell. False.
Okay. Pat?
False.
This team's MVP is Aaron Lewis. True or false?
False. I think the way that Greg Schiano described the defense is like it's a lot of guys doing their job. There's no one superstar, and I think that's probably true. I don't know if I can call out one specific guy.
That's a good point. Okay, fair enough. Pat, you agree?
That was so well said, Brian. So true. The answer.
I don't know who the MVP is anymore.
What Brian said was.
I don't know who the MVP is anymore. I think that's the point here.
Christian is
you can tell me at the end here
as well.
Christian, yeah. Well, who's gonna be the next one? So, but I'm gonna go false there too. I don't know who it is. Kind of funny. True or false? The most winnable game remaining is against Minnesota. Let's take a true or false.
True.
Wow. Okay, go with me, Pat.
True.
Wow. 2 trues. I'm gonna go false. I still think it's Maryland. And finally, true or false? Rutgers could go bowling at 5-7 again. Fonseca, true or false?
I have not seen those APR numbers, but I'm going to say false.
Pat?
False.
All right. So we're going to go right to that. I'm going to say true, and only because reading Brett McMurphy, who does the bowl breakdowns, I don't know what possessed me to click on a bowl breakdown column in October, but here I am. He says that he's projecting there will be 79 bowl eligible teams to fill 84 spots. That means 5-7 teams would need the bowl waiver to participate in the bowl. I'm just saying it's out there. The glory of waiting, the fun remains that there could be a 5-7 outcome. Is it likely? No, but it's just and for the record, this great part about this is that McMurphy didn't even pick Rutgers as one of the 5-7 teams. He went with Iowa, Kansas, Miami, Michigan State, and Texas Tech. So there you go. It's just out there. I'm just saying this 5-7 headlines. Ask James Cratch. 5-7 bowl headlines got us through most of November last year and half of December. So let's keep that in mind. All right. Why do you think Minnesota's the most winnable game?
I'm not convinced they're great. All their wins are against tomato cans. They haven't beat anybody good. All their efficiency stats look great, but I just and also I'm not sure if their quarterback's going to play. Tanner Morgan missed the game against Penn State with a concussion. I don't know if he'll be back. I don't trust their backup, And I think Rutgers defense could be good enough to contain their run game.
And you've seen the line? You've seen the line?
I just
14 and a half.
Yeah, it was a Maryland. I don't think Rutgers can keep pace with Maryland. That's why I don't think that's a good matchup for them. But I think they do contain the run really well, which is why I think that playing Minnesota is a little bit of a better matchup.
Okay, well, that's a good enough reason. All right, I'll go with that. And Michigan State doesn't appeal to you. They win over Wisconsin has taken them off the easiest potential game. I will say the fact that we're talking about 3 games as very winnable is a good sign for this team. All right, anything else you want to cover from true or false?
Nunzio, why do you guys say no?
Okay, that's a great question. I just haven't seen enough yet. I guess it's just to ask the question. I mean, he did a great job this game. It's an opportunity for Shannon to make a big splashy hire. He did it once already. Sometimes the guy on your staff is the right answer right in front of you, and it's still hard to pull the trigger on him. So that's my thoughts. What was your thoughts, Brian?
I just don't think a 24-point performance that you score 17 points on against a pretty bad Indiana defense is, he didn't beat Michigan, right? Like I think it's he passed the first test. He still has 5 more. We'll see. We'll reevaluate in November.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think this is going to be maybe a better indication of how he does this week. Minnesota's going to have a film, the important film component to it. And Minnesota's defense, I assume, is better than Indiana's because that's not a high bar to clear. So good point.
I also want to bring up Johnny Langan, the Johnny Langan package. I don't think it's dead. I do think it'll be used. Like he used it great on Saturday. You're in a 1st and goal from the 4-yard line, perfect short yard situation that you can use him as a battering ram. It's a lot better than using him on like a 1st and 10 out of the 20 with a ton of space in front of him and everyone knows he's going to run. So I think it'll continue, but it'll be limited and used in the right situations.
I mean, it was telling though, and I loved it. I think fans had to love it. 3rd and 2 twice in that game. He lined up under center, handed to Sam Brown. He gets a yard and they do it again and get the first down. I mean, that to me, it does speak to a level of, all right, they know it's coming and they still can't stop it. And it's just the way good football teams, physical football teams do it. They're not in the shotgun. They're not trying to trick you. They work too. So I wonder if they saw that and Rutgers saw that and said, okay, we don't need to use this as much. I don't know. What do you think, Pat?
I was going to say it's not dead. It's zombie-like. It'll be coming back in a second form.
Right. We're all and we are assuming, of course, that Sam Brown's going to play this week. It sounded like Greg Shannon was very positive about that in this press conference, and so that's the most important news that came out of this. It came out of the Monday's media session. All right, good job on true or false, guys. Let's dive in onto our Rutgers insider questions. As always, thank you for subscribing. We had some lively discussions, lots of good questions this week. Oh, and our Twitter feed. We have a Twitter feed now at Rutgers Rant, where we're going to take a couple of questions, but we're still going to give them to the paying subscribers because they're the ones forking over money and keeping us employed. All right, so lots of quarterback questions, as you can imagine. To the original point we made here early on, it was your point on Gavin Wimsatt, Pat. Does this offense not look like an RPO-based offense? And if so, do you think Wimsatt should be our quarterback because of his mobility? I mean, it's a great point. We've seen him break off a couple of big runs. Tell me this one, Fonseca, since Pat already gave his opinion on this. Why would you not just embrace that at this point for Rutgers?
Playing Gavin Wimsatt?
Yeah, and the RPO, just making it a run oriented. You've got a good run. You got a good running quarterback. You got a good running back. I don't know.
You got to throw the ball at some point, right? And as you've established that, we're not sure that Gavin can throw the ball consistently well without putting it in danger. That's the counting argument. The numbers don't support him. But I will say, to counter my own point, at some point you got to let the kid come out and play and throw and learn, right? So, but I think if Rutgers is still gunning for a bowl game, if they still have winnable games in front of them, as we've established they have, I think Noah Vedral is clearly the best option, and I think that's why they should keep rolling with him.
Brian, you watched the film a lot closer than we did. Vedral still does a lot of RPO stuff, right? Like he's still kind of doing some of that in the offense, right?
It does, but the offense they ran with Nunzio on Saturday had, they went under center. Vedral checked a lot of runs, which I'm not sure Wimsatt knows enough about the playbook and how to run an offense to be able to do that. Yeah, I think it's a little bit more multiple of an offense than just that, which I guess does open some more dimensions. And yeah, that's the thing, right? Vedral can do that, and he could do a lot more versus Wimsatt, who is still, again, he's still a freshman. He's still learning how to play quarterback at the college level. So
it feels like, and this is the point. I feel like, and I kind of got into a Twitter spat with a fan about this. Like I feel like Rutgers fans they want the Wimsatt that they think he's going to become. They want that player out there on Saturdays. And I think we've seen he's not that player yet. Not saying he can't be that player, but I think there's a lot of wishful thinking. Like, well, look at, and I believe me, no one's been more guilty of this than me. I mean, you see his potential. You see the bullet he threw for that touchdown pass against Wagner, but then you have to remember, okay, that's his only touchdown pass. It required a diving catch from, there's so many things about Wimsatt that are just an unfinished product. It's not saying he's not going to get there, but he's not there. I guess that's what I keep coming back to. And there are a lot of questions just about what does that mean? Here's one. I'll probably paraphrase this. This is a long question from old Mark, but what does that mean going forward for the program if he doesn't play this year? And I guess that's the bigger issue they've got to figure out. I mean, can you go into a season without knowing he's the guy? Other programs do it all the time. I mean, what do you think, Brian?
There will be opportunities, right? Him and Evan Simon will be the only 2 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster going into next summer. So I think that the space will be there. It'll be and I think Rutgers has to get a quarterback out of the portal to fill out the depth. Now, it's again, we kind of talked about this before, but it's a tough tightrope to walk because you can't get a kid that's good enough to start right away because he knows he's going to compete with Wimsatt. My thing is, like, are we going to know if he's the guy or not if he plays the last 4 games of the season? Is that going to be a fair enough sample size to figure that out? And he certainly can develop in the offseason, right? There's 9 months between the end of this year and the start of next year. He could certainly take jumps. I don't know. It's a lot of guesswork that the coaching staff is going to have to do and a lot of juggling to figure out. Would we have a better idea if he played in the last 4 games and had significant snaps? Absolutely. I just don't know if the coaching staff weighs that enough versus winning games and knowing that Vedral gives them the best chance to do that.
All right, here's an offensive X's and O's question for you, Pat, since you are officially our X's and O's guys. I just decided right now. From Steve F in Northern Virginia, RC 1990. Thanks for the question, Steve. What is the next step for this offense? How does it improve? Now that Minnesota knows that we want to pound the ball with Brown and they will stuff the box with 7, 8 defenders and run blitz in with tight man coverage. So how does this offense adjust and expand its game plan for Minnesota? It's a great question.
It's exactly what I was saying at the beginning of the podcast, because you even saw Indiana stuffing the box.
Right.
So that is how do you beat teams that stuff the box? You have to throw the ball downfield. You have to beat one-on-one coverage. We've seen Vedral's ability to throw the ball downfield. I don't want to say it's great. It's not horrible. It's somewhere in the middle of that. But I think Wimsatt has great downfield ability. And that's why I think, like, there are situations that you're going to see him come into the game on maybe like a 3rd and long or whatever. And I don't, that's why I don't think this whole quarterback thing is as plain and simple and set and done. Like, I think there are situations that from an X's and O's standpoint that you're going to need to throw the ball downfield. And if Vedral's not getting it done, then you're going to have to turn it over to the guy with the stronger arm and the guy with that ability.
All right. Here's a good question from JP DeMoro, a fan of the pod, good friend. We can call JP a friend. Is it possible when all is said and done that we will look back on this season and realize the difference between 8-4 and 6-6 was not firing the offensive coordinator sooner and halfway decent play calling with one quarterback? I think this, I guess we're jumping a bit that they're going to be 6-6. And I don't think that's still not quite likely. I don't know. I mean, would they have beaten Iowa with Nunzio and Vedral? I don't know.
I'm going to answer the question the same way Noah Vedral answered the question that you asked him about whether he ever thinks about what the season could have been if he was healthy.
Yeah.
I don't delve into that realm, Steve.
I don't delve into that realm. It's all we do. That's all we do is delve into that realm. I live in that realm. Come on.
How do we know that if Nunzio Campanile was calling the game instead of Sean Gleason, that they would beat Iowa, or that if Noah Vedral was behind center, that they would have won that game and he wouldn't have thrown 2 interceptions? We don't know. I mean,
I do know that they would have beaten Nebraska.
Hey, Rutgers Rant listeners, it's Steve Politi from NJ Advance Media. We appreciate you supporting this podcast and the sponsors who help us continue doing it. This week's podcast is brought to you by the New Brunswick Development Corporation. If you listen to this show, you love Rutgers. And if you love Rutgers, you know the positive impact that DevCo has made on the campus and its community. We thank the New Brunswick Development Corporation for its continued support and for helping make this podcast possible. Now back to the show.
I don't know that. I don't know. As certainly as you can say something to be true without seeing it happen, I feel like they would have beaten Nebraska. Nebraska. That's why Gleason got fired, because Greg Schiano saw the same thing.
Well-
and it brings us back to that first point too. Like, did Gleason get the short hand of the stick because everyone was injured?
Yes, of course he did. Yes, but that doesn't mean you drop back on a 8-step drop with Evan Simon and your own backed up against your own end zone and throw the ball to Nebraska. I think that's kind of what that's what the difference there is. But
The counterpoint,
no, it's a great point.
The counterpoint on this also is that we always assume that the games they lost, they would have won if they had someone else. What about the games they won? How do we know that they would have beaten Boston College on that last drive by running it down their throat and they don't, call a pass play that gets intercepted, or that against Temple, they don't manage to score? It works both ways here. We could play hypotheticals all day. It doesn't,
Right.
There's no way of knowing.
When coaches say that they don't like to live in hypotheticals, they're saying that for a reason.
Now I know how they feel. It's not great.
All right. A couple more. I love the offensive exit zone question. Why doesn't Rutgers run any screens? Is one. I'm going to give these two-parter to you, Pat, for this. Why do they run screens? They only have what do we come up with? Fonseca, 15, 16 passes to running backs all year. It's kind of remarkable. And any explanation why Cruikshank end arounds were successful versus Boston College, and then not again until Nunzio was calling the plays. The one that got 41 yards might have been the best play call of the season for this Rutgers team. Because I don't think anybody saw it. Certainly Indiana didn't see it until he was well into their secondary. I didn't see it. It was just a great call. So, all right, I'll put those both out to you for you, Pat, to handle any way you want.
Okay. All right. Screens as in wide receiver screens to Cruikshank, or screens in terms of running back screens?
I think running backs, but I guess
Okay.
you're right. I'll take a Cruikshank screen if you want to do
Okay.
that too.
Okay. I don't know. They do definitely throw the quick screen to Cruikshank. So let's throw that one out.
Okay.
Screens to running backs, I think maybe that's a product of a pro style system. Not positive, but I think that could be it. Like, that usually comes in those kind of sets. But it's a great question, and for Vedral, it seems like a no-brainer that's the type of play and that he would execute so well, because he has the great vision and understanding of timing and can see what the defense is doing. So I think that's a play that a nice running back slip screen is exactly what Vedral would excel at. So you're right. Maybe, hey, Nunzio, there you go.
Hey, Nuns, free play call screens,
So
bubble
they're-
screens.
They're at 14 through 7 games.
14.
I will say a point worth making is that Aaron Young, who's probably their best pass catching running back, has been hurt. He
Well, he
played
wasn't. He played last week.
in punt coverage. He didn't take a snap, offensive snap though.
That's weird too. What's up with that?
Yeah, that's a fair question.
We don't not enough time in the day to ask that question, but yeah, it's a good point.
Right, but him not being around probably hurts. Though I will say that 14 to a game seems like probably not enough.
All right, couple more really quick. What could have been Schiano's belief when we went for that last 56-yard field goal attempt? I don't know. A brain fart. There's only I can't.
You gotta trust Jude McAdamy.
I mean, he wasn't. He missed it. The guy, the cheerleader caught it. Brian, I read your copy. Wasn't close. I don't know. Just seemed like you gave. Why give them? Got the best punter in the world. You can drop it on the 1 yard line.
Is
Why
he?
give
He's
the ball
he's
to
had a
40?
he's had a touchback 2 weeks in a row. Is he?
Oh, stop.
Is he losing a step?
Listen,
People are asking.
this podcast is Adam Corsack fan board here. We don't go against Corsack.
Yeah, he followed up the touchback with a 56-yard punt.
66-yard.
Oh,
Come
66. There you
It's
go.
just a thing of beauty. All right, a few more. I like this one. Why does Rutgers keep announcing ridiculous attendance? I can't believe I'm going here. This is from Rick in South Carolina. I did not plant this question. Why does Rutgers keep announcing ridiculous attendance totals? I'm assuming actual attendance is up, so why not just announce that? No one actually thinks they're selling out, and it just seems like a bad PR look. The answer, I think, is for recruiting. But to Rick's point, yeah, I think that's what happened. Instead of us noting that attendance is on the upswing, and instead of us looking at a good crowd against Nebraska and saying, hey, good crowd against Nebraska, we looked at it and said, well, there's no way this game's sold out. And I guess that's what happens. And people look at us and say, well, why do you have to focus on that? Well, the flip side of that is, why do you have to say it's a sellout if it's not really sold out? I guess that's a great question. Fun second. You crunched the numbers on this with the help of the Oprah.
Well, why? Because everyone else does it, Steve. So why can't we?
Everyone else does. Who does it? Everyone else does it.
Yes, I'm sure most college football programs use announced attendance rather than actual attendance, and a lot of them cook the numbers. Nebraska's had like the record sellout streak. They've had guys buy out 2,000 tickets. I'm sure he doesn't have 2,000 friends to give the tickets to,
Right.
just to keep the streak alive.
Yeah, is right.
Now,
Okay.
does that make it right? No. And I do think that if you're going to, to your point, if you're going to do that, you're leaving yourself up to getting, get some scrutiny. So if you're going to flaunt a fake sellout, you got to be ready for when the fake sellout gets called out.
I thought Iowa was a great crowd. I thought Iowa was a legit great crowd in the stands, start of the game. Nebraska, not so much. And look, even a homecoming crowd, it was announced tens of like 44,000 or 42,000. Nice crowd for a 4-3 team on a noon on a busy October day. I just think that perhaps in the future, and I get it, it's for recruiting. They can tell recruits, look, we sold out 2 games, the stadium's packed, but I don't know how much that really matters in the grand scheme of things. I mean, recruits can see what we see as well. So great question, Rick. I swear I didn't plant it. All right. Final one, and a good segue to our predictions. Am I an idiot? This is from Twitter. I forget who's asked it, but it's a good question from Twitter. Always begins with, am I an idiot? Am I an idiot or a fool to think that running the ball 30 plus times and defense gives us a shot against Minnesota? Hell no. I think a good shot against Minnesota. So yeah, I don't think you're an idiot. You guys agree?
Absolutely agree. And that's what Minnesota wants to do to Rutgers.
Right.
So hopefully that means a very quick 2.5-hour game. Just run. But yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. If Sam Brown could get 89 yards after contact every week, I think Rutgers could be anybody.
All right. Prediction time. Brian, do you want to pat yourself on the back here for completely nailing, not just getting it right, but getting exactly right? 24-17 Rutgers win against Indiana. Come on, go ahead.
Once a year, it just happens. You just, when you take as many shots as I do, every once in a while, you're going to hit a bullseye. And I did. Yeah. I mean, it's all, I was pretty humble about it. All I did was screenshot it and post it on Twitter so everyone could see it.
All I did, I'm not one to pat myself on the back, but I did do a victory lap on social media for the world to see. That's good. I like
That's what you deserve. You deserve that praise when you nail a bullseye like that. Good for you, Brian.
That's right. Now, I guarantee you it will not happen again this week.
All right. Minnesota minus 14.5. I don't believe that. Is that the line you have?
I haven't checked. It opened at 10. Is it 14.5?
It didn't. I mean, I've looked everywhere. I didn't see anything close to 10. I mean,
Circus Sports had it at 10. Let me check.
Do a quick check here because that seems like a really high number for a 4-3 Big Ten team playing a 4-3 Big Ten team, right? Pat,
it seems big. Seems big, especially after they got waxed at Penn State.
Right. Yeah.
Let's see.
Do the French as a
okay. Okay. Yeah, I can confirm on Vegas Insider 14.5.
14.5. Wow. All right. Incredible. Well, you're leading. You go first. 14.5. What are you gonna do with that?
This feels like free money, which really, really scares me.
It does scare you. Yeah.
It seems too obvious. I think Rutgers is a value play with the money line. If you ask me,
What's the money line?
Let me find that for you.
Not that we can bet it here in New Jersey.
It is plus 480.
Oh,
it's 480.
Holy.
Yes,
that's what it was. I just happened to know this coincidentally, not because I might have been gambling on it, but that's what it was when the Astros went up. We're down 3-0 last night. It was plus 480. Anyway, go on. Sorry to interrupt.
That's pretty good value if you ask me.
I thought so too.
Now I'm going to have to reconsider what I was going to, because Vegas must know something that we don't.
What would Vegas know? We follow the team closely. Anyway, make your pick. Who do you like?
I will go Minnesota 23, Rutgers 14.
Okay. A cover, but a 2-score Minnesota win. All right. As the leader, once again, you set the pace. Pat, who do you got?
I don't want to be the Rutgers guy on this podcast.
Why would you want? Who would want to be the Rutgers guy on a Rutgers podcast? God forbid, right?
Oh my goodness. I was shocked to feel the line at 14.5. I really am. Because I thought Rutgers has a legitimate shot in this game, especially if they can stop the run. I think it's a good matchup for them. Can they do enough offensively to win? That's the question. And maybe if we get Gavin Wimsatt in the game, that's the difference.
That'll be the difference. Here we go.
Still, I cannot take Rutgers in this one, but I will go in the similar vein as Brian with the cover. I think Rutgers definitely covers 14.5. Let's keep it 24-20.
Wow. Okay.
Close game.
Well, screw this. I'm going to pick Rutgers to win the game. How's that sound?
Love it.
Rutgers guy, Steve Politi.
Here, who knew? I'd be the guy. And I'm not, and I tell you, I'm not talking myself into this one. I thought that they'd have a chance to win. I thought it'd be a 7. I thought Minnesota -7 was the line I was expecting. 14.5 just seems crazy. I mean, look, this is the game. I think in a lot of ways, if anybody knows if these two coaching staffs, we haven't talked about that at all. I mean, certainly Rutgers knows what Minnesota's going to do, vice versa. PJ Fleck, that entire Joe Rossi, that entire coaching staff is essentially Rutgers Northwest, what you want to call it. So yeah, I think Rutgers is finally going to have some progress in the passing game with Noah Vedral. I think he's going to play, if not the entire game, all but 4 or 5 snaps again. This is going to be his show, and it's going to be a 27-21 Rutgers victory. There you go. This is the upset. I said they would upset one team. This is the one I think is going to be, and that's my pick. How you like that? All right, other thoughts? What else we got? Oh my gosh, women's soccer at a tailspin. 2 straight L's to Michigan schools. I Google this every time before the podcast to see this. What happened? What's going on? Tell me, Fonseca, what's happening?
The interesting thing about this team is that for years we would say this women's program has such great defense. If only they could find some consistent scoring.
Yeah.
Now they're scoring goals in bunches, but they just can't stop. They can't get a stop. They can't prevent opposing teams from scoring. So yeah, I mean, look, they had a chance, a very, 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 very slim chance of defending their title entering the weekend. They had to win both games. They lost both. But listen, this is the high bar that this program has set, that if they don't win the Big Ten, it's disappointing. But maybe this is the year they go into the Big Ten tournament and finally pull out a championship there. So on the other end, the other side of Yersack Field, men's soccer, MD Myers, an underappreciated story, leads the nation in goals. Rutgers is the top goal scorer in the country. MD Myers, high point transfer, Philadelphia Union Academy product. And
how many is that?
13. There's 13 goals in
how many games? In like
13 goals in 15 games.
Wow.
Rutgers is going to make the Big Ten tournament. And when you got a guy who leads the nation in scoring, I guess there's always a chance to compete. So that starts a week from Friday. Their season finale will be on this Friday against UCLA in a rematch of the 1990 national championship game when Alexi Lalas was in, a game that was scheduled before UCLA joined the Big Ten. So it's a big coincidence, but that should be, we won't be there. We'll be in Minneapolis that Friday, but should be a good game at Yersack Field, which now has a student section, a student supporting section, making it feel like a soccer environment. So yeah, good things happening on for that program. So I'm excited to see what they can do in the Big Ten tournament.
Nice. Sorry. Anything else we got going on? Stringer Day. We've announced. I see that we announced Vivian Stringer's court dedication day, December 4th. Oh, 7:30 kickoff for the Michigan game. What else? Any other final thoughts? Anything else?
Rutgers Wrestling Media Day, November 4th. That'll get some storylines there.
There you go. Excellent. Okay. And,
the charity basketball game is this Sunday for Eric LeGrand.
Oh yes,
against Fairfield and the Fighting Jay Youngs.
Jay Young. That'll be the first time we can see the new look Scarlet Knights in action. You gonna go to that? No, you won't. You'll be on the road. You can't.
I will. I'm at a 6 a.m. flight out of Minneapolis. I'm going to land in Newark Airport. I'm going to drive my way down to the rack.
Wow. Good grief. That's dedication right there.
Just doing my job, Steve.
This is great. I forgot to ask this question. This is let me go back to this before we leave, because I love it. Let me see if I can find it. It's such a great question. I'd like to hear about, I would love to know the life of a Rutgers football beat writer. Set hours, work from home, travel. I have no clue how the business works. Thanks. I highlighted this question to ask during Q&A, and this is it. We've got it, how it works right here, right?
Grinding. That's what we do. We chop. That's what we do as the Rutgers football beat writers.
You don't have set hours, do you? You guys don't have set hours, right?
No.
Set hours. Use breaking all the time.
Set hours is how from 24/7. Is that your set hours this time of year? It's close.
It is close. Yes. Why does this guy want to apply for my job or something? Or what's the?
I think that's what it is. Yeah, clearly. So send in your resume, whoever you are, to NJ.com. Work from home, travel. Yeah, all that stuff, right?
Get berated in your emails about every story you write.
We haven't had any food reviews on the podcast lately, but that was a fan favorite for a while.
Free food in the press box. Minnesota. I've not been to. Have you been to Minneapolis? I have not. I was at the old stadium. I think I was at the old stadium. I don't think I've been at the new stadium though.
I have. I hear they stopped giving out free ice cream in the press box, which is very, very distressing to me, frankly.
Ice cream in Minneapolis. Okay. Yeah.
Dilly bars.
Oh, nice. All right. Good road trip. All right. That's on that note. We will sign off. We will be back to recap the Minnesota game and everything else going on in Rutgers sports. From Devco, from everybody here at NJ Advanced Media. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. to participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone. Sign up at NJ.com/insider.
You haven't heard enough from me yet, huh? Steve Politi here for one last thank you to this episode's sponsor, New Brunswick Development Corporation, and to listeners like you who make it all the way to the end of the show. We'll see you again soon.